This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbroadcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates.
This episode of Filthy Casuals is brought to you by Blog Tyrant. Go to blogtyrant.com/filth and get a free individual brainstorming session to help you start a blog or a new career online. Don't just start a website, learn how to make it successful with Blog Tyrant.
Video games. Welcome once again to Filthy Casuals, a podcast about video games, hosted by three very kind and extremely knowledgeable boys. Not very knowledgeable so far, but yeah.
Well, I've pressed record this week.
Yes.
I've had a promotion. And I hit record on our recorder.
Yes.
And it turned a colour I'm pretty sure I've never seen it turn before.
I think it just turned red, which is the universal sign for recording.
But usually the numbers aren't red.
Yes,
Usually
they
the
are.
numbers are white.
No, the numbers are absolutely every single time red.
Well, there's no way to ever find out. For sure.
Also,
Wait.
you said you got a promotion. I consider this a demotion because
Yeah.
I don't like doing it.
I'm happy to get more responsibilities.
Okay.
Every time I get told to do a new job, regardless of the money involved, that's a promotion.
Okay.
Boy, I hope this isn't recording.
Clean the toilets. I'm the president now.
My name is Tommy Dasilo, and with us as always...
Ben Vanel. Yeah, I forgot we hadn't introduced ourselves.
Yes.
yet.
People flummoxed as they're listening to this.
And on the ones and twos.
Hannah on the ones and twos. G'day. It's oh wait, no. Let me take another run at that DJ voice.
Okay.
Here on the ones and twos for your drive home. It's Adam, Big Adam in the box in the morning. Who's in the box? I'm in the box.
And I'm Ben Vanel, and we've got over here Tommy Dasilo too.
Oh, Ben, you can't say that.
Now listen, boys. Fossil. Come on, Fossil.
It's there's that trend in breakfast radio, especially in Melbourne, where the person who's paneling kind of ends up on the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's sort of a bit of what you were doing then, although it's pretty rare that they lean in and they're like, "Is this recording? Are we going out right now? This desk is a color I've never seen before.
It's Fifi Fev and the idiot.
It's Fifi Viv and the work experience, kid." So yes, we well, okay. Should we just put our cards on the table and say we are doing this significantly in advance of its release?
No.
Okay.
It is January the 9th, 2004.
This is live. We're
Yeah.
doing this live.
We're streaming for the first time.
Yeah. No. Yes, you're right, Tommy. We're doing this in advance. Comedy festival's coming up, and some of us are going out.
I've been away in Adelaide and New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm back, though. And boy, they were fun.
Yeah, how'd it go?
Adelaide was amazing. I had an incredible time there. That city continues to be a delight.
Wow.
And
The knowing laugh there.
New Zealand was probably really nice. I heard about a good museum before I went, and then I went to that museum, and I enjoyed it.
Wow. You didn't just
Great.
sleep in and then have a meal nearby and
Yeah.
talk to your friends and not go to the museum?
You didn't
No.
get put off by the fact that it wasn't free to get into the museum?
I absolutely would. I love museums. They're the best thing to go to in any city if you go there.
Actually, yes. To be fair, your exploits in other cities that I've heard of do involve museums.
Yeah, I like museums and zoos.
Yeah, nice.
If you can fucking chuck some old animals in a building, oh motherfucker,
Wow.
you have gotten me involved.
There's some museums have animal skeletons in
Yes,
them.
they do.
Yeah.
Do you think I've not noticed?
I was testing
That's
you.
what I race to.
Oh.
I run to them and then I trip over and Paul Blart style.
A huge stegosaur just slowly collapses.
Yeah.
Big fan of the guided audio tour. that you
I'm not
typically-
into them.
No.
Really?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, neither. I just like to go and absorb it at my own pace.
No, I
Yeah,
need to be told what to think.
I would feel rushed by him. I did one
Yeah.
of them at the Melbourne Zoo. It was like a nighttime one, an evening zoo walk around. And it was on iPhones or iPods, but video capability. When you get to the elephants, it's like, one of these gave birth not that long ago. Want to see it? And then on the iPod, a fucking elephant.
Horrific.
Yeah, Ace Ventura 2 starts playing.
Well, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, I mean the zoo. I wouldn't see the point in that. But like a museum where it's like taking you around and like giving you the chronological kind of thing. I
It
like
has
that.
all of that on the written down for you.
Yeah, but reading is for idiots, and I think the listeners of this will agree with me on that one.
Yes.
I like that you read so little. It took you halfway through the word agree. You had to remember what the second half of the word agree was.
Fuck again. Really hoping I could have gotten away with that. Nothing gets past you.
No,
Nothing gets past you.
that's
Players paddling.
That's what I get from living that museum lifestyle. I notice every little trick everybody tries to pull.
We are doing this a little bit in advance. It's the week that Comedy Festival is starting, so probably worth us plugging all of the shows that we're doing. Which my stand-up show, Leisure Suit Tommy, is starting on March the 28th. Well, it will have started by the time people hear this. March the 28th it started. It's on till April the 10th, and then also the 15th and the 22nd at the Coopers Inn. comedyfestival.com.au for tickets to that one. Adam Knox.
My show would have just finished half an hour ago or so.
Already been nominated for the Barry Award too.
Yep.
Unprecedented.
Yeah.
It will be in 3 days. It will turn out it was a mistake. And they will make me give back my Barry, which I haven't even won yet. They're going to make me go out and buy a trophy
And give
hand
it to
back. Yeah.
Moonlight.
Yeah, they make
Yeah.
you give back the envelope that had the nomination in it.
I love a joke from the previous Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one-
And that's why you laughed so loud.
It's called This Show is Good and Funny, Attendance Appreciated, and I mean every word of that. And I want you to all come to it at 6:30 p.m. at Trades Hall from the 29th, which is today, until the 22nd of April, which is a few Sundays from now.
And I'm in a show called The Death of Chimp Cop, featuring one Adam Knox,
Yep.
one
Couldn't get the
Timothy
second one.
Clark, one Rosie Vanell, and one Ben Vanell. It's on at 8:30 p.m, so about half an hour from now if you're listening right when this comes out.
Oh my God. I hope someone
Races
legs
down,
it to the
yeah.
venue
Yes.
tonight. Please. And if you are that person, hang around after the show. Let Ben and Adam know that. Or you could make it to mine. I'm at 8:20.
Yeah.
Pick one of our shows.
Oh, you're never going to make it to that. 8:30, though, I think is doable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just race down, and then when you get there, you'll be running so fast that Paul Blart style, you fall over and end up on the stage, and we incorporate you into the show.
Yes.
But yeah, please stick around and if you do that to either of our shows on this day that this is out, let us know. We will look at you with a look of confusion because we're saying this about 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
We definitely will have forgotten that we've put this out there, but please, try us.
And don't talk to us on any other night you come. That's the deal. The Death of Chimp Cop, it's a sketch comedy show. It's sort of like a cinematic narrative thing. It's kind of like we do a dumb movie on stage, and it's fun. It's a fun time.
It's like one of the Naked Gun movies, sort of, but Ben has never seen any of the Naked Gun movies,
Yeah.
which is fucking unbelievable.
Yes.
Like
I refuse to be tainted by that influence. I want to do only original jokes.
Like the person who designs Nike shoes hadn't heard of Adidas. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's something like that.
yes.
And weirdly enough, in your version, there's somehow more O.J. Simpson, which is confusing.
There are actually a couple of OJ jokes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, that's our plugs out of the way. comedyfestival.com.au for tickets to all of our shows.
Yeah, so we're getting this stockpile because we know that we'll be busy in this week. So
You're welcome.
Apologies if there's been any big breaking news this week.
The big thing will be Far Cry 5 has just come out,
Yes.
and we'll be talking about that next week,
Yes.
I imagine. But yeah, other than that, I was about to say, and also the news but of course I don't know what it is because it hasn't happened
Yes.
yet.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time, and goodbye. No, we figured this week we've got a big old mailbag there that's been had a lot of stuff come into it in the last little while. We kind of went looking for it recently, like we asked people to send us stuff. We did an episode and we had still so much left over and still more new questions coming in that we thought this was a good week to go in some of the excellent questions and topics that people sent us.
Yeah, and we had a really good time on that episode, just, kind of talking a bit more about topics that we don't get to touch on as much.
Yeah.
Some fun discussion.
That's really sounded like you had fun.
Yeah. You'll,
More or less fun than a museum.
I think museums are really fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
So less fun. If you're
Yeah,
listening to this
right.
while you're walking around a museum, though,
Oh, there we go.
motherfucker, you got it sorted.
Yeah, this is your audio guide through the museum.
Yeah.
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 So
That's an old insect.
The plan
Look at
is
that fucking thing. The
plan is that
Imagine
this-
how big it would have been.
The plan is that this syncs up perfectly with the Guggenheim.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you put Dark Side of the Moon on as well underneath this, it makes it a lot
You
less
get a
easy
free
to
iPhone
understand.
5.
So should we just jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
To what?
The pool.
Yeah.
Splash. Connor has written in.
Classic OJ.
Connor is Connor's our first cab off the rank. What are some good games for people who are just shit at video games? Tommy specifically. Most of the games he
Come
didn't.
on.
He
He didn't put
He didn't
that.
write
No,
that
he
down.
didn't write that.
Most of the games you guys talk about on the podcast sound really fun, but I just know that I'd be terrible at them. For context, it took me about 4 to 5 months for me to finish the Crash Bandicoot trilogy last year, and I really like the aesthetic of Cuphead, but I know I wouldn't get past level 1.
Now, I've had a pre-read of this email.
Oh,
Cheeky.
how dare you!
Yeah, I'm sorry. Those are both really hard games. Like Crash Bandicoot, they are difficult platformers.
Yeah, and there's 3 of them in that package. Like, no need to be ashamed about spending 4 months on 3 games. Like, that's fine.
That's fine.
But
Yeah.
I think the general sentiment is interesting because
Yes.
especially like similar thoughts of getting people who don't play video games. What's a good entry level sort of
Yes.
thing? And yeah, just the thing of video games. I can't remember if we've discussed this before. If this is just something that I've heard around the
Screamed
traps.
into the darkness.
Yeah.
like you're trying to sleep.
Video games are like the only thing that has a barrier of entry to enjoying the whole thing. I guess there are some books that are kind of difficult to read the language of, like if you're going to read something complicated, like a
Sure.
fucking, Harry Potter book or something, then you're going to have a hard time. But like if you can get your way through a book or
What's your favorite book? I've got this weird memory that you said that you don't like reading and you don't like books because you're too impatient. Is that true?
No, that's not me.
Okay.
I like reading and I like books. I just don't have time for it a lot of the time.
Right.
But I don't know. It depends what day you catch me on. And as it's today,
Yes.
I'm going to say the general work of Terry Pratchett is my favorite
Nice. I was
series of books.
listening to the first one as an audiobook the other night and it's really good. It
I
still
think I
holds
would
up.
hate to listen to them as audiobooks because there's something about the tone of the comedy writing
humour,
in that
yeah.
book that I think would bother me if it was said to me more than me reading it with
It
my
was
voice in my head.
a dude who got it and he delivered it well. It's worth listening to.
They're good.
Yeah.
I like Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah,
As a
nice.
person, never read one of his books.
Yeah, he's actually. You'll find out later.
What? Is there news about him? My friend Kurt Vonnegut, who I'm planning on visiting later today.
I mean, he's just give him a call.
Yeah, I don't know. I like some books.
But you're right. Video games is the only medium I can think of that really has a genuine barrier in terms of response time, reflexes, time commitment. Like it's all of these things combined.
Yeah, if you don't know how they work, like you are just not going to be able to get through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Even
like-
something that like certain games can. It took me a few goes to get into things like Dark Souls and whatever,
Right.
Because you need to understand the rhythm of them,
Yeah.
Before, and you need to have some certain level of just like motor competency with
Well,
what
the
it's
nice
asking
thing
you
about
to
them
do.
is that they're
Yeah.
constantly, as they evolve, they're trying to still retain a level of difficulty for the people that have been playing them for now, 30 years or something. So even if you are locked into it and you do get it, they're constantly trying to flummox you and kind of outdo you in a certain way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And that's you don't realize how much not baggage. What's the word? How much built-in knowledge
Yeah.
of these sort of complicated things are just in the back of your head.
Yes.
Yeah, like with first-person shooters, like there's a certain amount of muscle memory that allows you to play the latest Call of Duty that someone coming to games for the first time, there's no way you're going to be able to play them or experience them in the way they're supposed to be
Yeah,
experienced.
Yeah.
It's not really a natural thing to do.
Yeah.
Even something that you think of as the easiest thing, like say to get to grips with, but let's say a Mario platformer, which
Yeah.
is one button to jump and then moving around. Like if I gave that to my dad, he wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like he would be put off by that.
So
Right.
do you know the other big thing I think is like, yeah, you've got like there's all that motor stuff is like definitely a part of it, but something that's really interesting to see someone who doesn't play video games ever butt their head against is like shitty, weird game logic that you take for granted.
Yeah.
Sure.
And people go like, why doesn't this work? There's
Yeah.
no reason that this idea I've had shouldn't work.
Yeah.
Or like, why why do I have to talk to this person a second time
Well,
to
yeah.
get them to give me this quest?
I tried to get my ex-girlfriend into games, and we started with Firewatch because the art style was really interesting to her, and it was very visually appealing in a instant kind of way. But then trying to get her to move around in a first-person shooter way, and even know where to go. There's so many things that you instinctively well, you just follow that path.
Yeah.
There's something is going to be down that path because it's a game.
But why?
It's been
But how do you
designed.
know that? Yeah.
And
why wouldn't I go? The woman told me just wait here, so I'm going to wait here. But
Right.
no, it's a video game, so you've got to wander
Yeah,
off. Don't
totally.
follow anyone's instructions. Yeah.
And is that what broke you guys up and then you moved into the bush?
Exactly. Yes. But you know who is really into games, and maybe this speaks to that thing of experience and history and built-in knowledge. My dad.
Right.
He loves games, and he recently had this discussion about it where he was he'd been trying to play a lot of PS3 games, and he kind of just was giving up. And
Because he was putting them into a PS2.
oh,
His dad's that fucking stupid that the reason wasn't anything to do with the game like you'd thought it'd have been.
Yeah, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
But he was getting frustrated because they were too hard, and he wasn't persisting with them. And then he just had some downtime recently, and he was like, I'm going to give, I think it was Assassin's Creed 2 another go.
Right.
And he just put more time into it, and he was like, oh, I've got it. I've realized you have to get good at the game before you enjoy them. And this is something we talked a bit about on our Bandcamp about DOS games, where you used to just play games to get a high score, to be successful at them without really enjoying the process. And that's not how games are made now. You've got to enjoy the whole experience, and you've got to be good at it to enjoy it.
I've been thinking about it a bit recently because I posted this in our Facebook group, but my dad was asking about this podcast and then games as a whole and everything. And so explaining the Switch to him and sort of explaining, just to how games work and all that sort of stuff. And he, I think he would be really interested in anything that's kind of puzzle solving-y. So I kind of was almost thinking about maybe I'll get him a 2DS and get him one of those brain training games and the Professor Layton stuff he was really interested in because it's he loves kind of Sherlock Holmes and mystery sort of stuff. But again, for him, it generationally, that barrier of just anything with an interface where it's more than just flicking on a switch, having to go and select it from a menu and then set up a new game and all that. Again, what you were saying about Adam about the inbuilt knowledge of you just scroll through the menu, you just go up and down, and then you hit A. It's what's any of that mean? Why? Yeah. Why do I do that? And it's the same with he's got you can get some of that stuff on iOS, but he's the same. He's got an iPhone and he knows how to text and call and take photos, and that's about it. He's what's the app store? What are apps? I'm all that stuff on the screen. When you're texting me, that's an app. But he just doesn't something that is you. Wouldn't think you could get more simple than just it's there on the screen and you touch it and then you're in it.
Yeah.
That still is too much of a barrier.
Totally.
Yeah, right.
I remember my dad played through Call of Duty 1 and 4
Right.
on two separate occasions. And the thing that he ran up against in both of them was he knew he was playing it on the PC and he knew move the mouse and click on the guy and he'll die. I can point and click at stuff. I've used a computer.
Yes.
These buttons move me around. I get that. But there were situations in it where it's you have to move up because they're going to spawn infinitely and they'll keep coming at you until you move to this point. And it's why?
Right.
Why would there be infinite Germans?
Right. That's a nightmare.
Yeah. We should have lost this war.
Yeah.
They deserve to win if there's infinite of them. They are the majority now, which makes them correct.
Yeah, it should just still be going.
Yeah, but it's stuff like that. So in terms of those things, stuff like Breath of the Wild, weirdly, is something that I've seen a lot of people who aren't really into games get into because ideas that you have work in that game.
Right.
Things that you think should logically happen kind of just do.
And you can go in there and it's not really pushing you towards doing these objectives.
If you walk in any direction, you'll find something to do.
Yeah.
It's
it
seems counterintuitive because it's pretty complicated.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. It would be that thing of okay, what do I do? Where's my guidelines? What am I doing? I would have thought games like Mario, anything that replicates something in the real world, Mario Kart, something like that, is got to be easier to get into.
But it naturally gives you those things because if you're in the woods, you're going to walk in a direction. then if you see somebody, you're going to walk up to, it's sort of, it happens quite organically in that game. Which
It would be cool for that purpose if you could turn off enemies and stuff and just have it as a thing where you just walk around in this nice world.
Well, like that Assassin's Creed thing, speaking of museums. This is a few weeks ago now.
Yeah.
But I haven't tried it yet, but in Assassin's Creed Origins, there's basically you walk around Egypt and it tells you fun little facts about Egypt.
Yeah.
They've covered up all the nudity on the statues.
Oh, man.
Which is weird.
Like fucking lame.
It's also kind of gross in the way of fuck you. Don't change history for your own fucking puritanical weird things now.
Totally. Bodies aren't gross. Attitudes are.
Let me see that elephant fucking getting a kid out of its elephant mutt.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me eat Pikachu's ass.
I want to do that from a month ago.
I weirdly enough, I remember when I had the Nintendo 64, I had Pilot Wings on it, and my dad being really into that because he has a pilot's license and he's flown planes in the past. So I kind of, I would love to spend a day with him just showing him, but it's like needing some good entry level stuff. And I really hope there's some kind of there is a flight simulator out on the Switch that I haven't really looked into enough to whether it's good or not, but I've been thinking, maybe I should just get that and go and I think he would enjoy something like that. But I think that's kind of the extent of where my dad would be able to pick up on something because flying is just yep, here you are. I have an interest in this from the real world, and it's up, down, left, right. You got to go through these things. There's no enemies. There's no crazy objectives. There's no, you know what I mean? There's no equipping. It's just literally you soar around on your telly.
It's really interesting. I think our dads descend in age, right? In terms of their ability with
Mine
games.
increases in age year by year.
Yeah, but in terms of Tommy's, I think, is the oldest, and I think yours is the middle, and mine's the youngest.
Right.
And so my dad's experience with games is he's always been a gamer. So he's stuff with the interfaces and the logic is all there. It's more the really modern games. It's a lot of the open world games where it's the figuring out how to get the most out of them is the thing that he's had an issue with. But now he's he loves The Witcher 3. He's fully into those games.
Right.
Mine as the middle dad understands the basics of I need to shoot the enemies, but it's the other things put on top of that seem illogical, which I think he's right about. But more to Connor's point.
And mine as the old dad knows fucking nothing.
Yeah.
Because dad was 40 when he had me, which was 86. So you're 40 around the time that stuff is really mid-80s when consoles and stuff.
Late 70s was Space Invaders and shit as well. In pubs.
Well, that's the thing. My dad was a teenager in the 70s, so that was just prime time.
And my dad was my age then.
Right.
So I would go oh, cool. But it's sort of with, I don't know...
fidget spinners.
This bloody rap music they're all listening to today.
Yes.
To this point of people who are terrible at games...
Because it sounds like Connor's into games, but just doesn't... stuff like Kirby and things like Journey or Inside and things like that, where they're kind of not simple, or they're not easy, but it's simple what you have to do.
Sure.
Well, you mentioned Firewatch before. Firewatch was on my list of what you'd recommend. Any kind of quote-unquote walking simulator, Edith Finch as well, stuff where you can't really... It's not so much challenge-based. I guess the Telltale stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, anything where reaction time and spatial judgment is taken out of it. That tends to be the thing that people consider to be difficulty.
Well, I think walking simulators what was that game we played recently? What Remains of Edith Finch?
Yeah.
Games where you can gradually learn how to smoothly and confidently control a first-person shooter character without the issue of having to get killed over and over again.
Yeah.
It's probably something that's good to play.
And stuff like Inside teaches you how to play a Mario game, but the difficulty isn't so much the platforming as figuring out the puzzle and how that's going to work beforehand.
Also, mobile games, typically are not, Monument Valley 3s, things that are... Monument Valley is kind of just a little weird phone experience, and 3s is a little puzzler thing where you're just going to constantly be trying to up your high score. Those are really easy ones to recommend to people who who aren't as versed in games.
Yep.
So to answer your question, Connor, get Dark Souls and play it until you're good, and then we'll fucking let you talk to us, mate. Because it's really important to be very, very good at video games.
Yes.
It's
damn
super
you,
important.
filthy casual, Connor.
Next email comes in from Eric. He says, "Hey
Only
guys,
emails from people who finish Crash Bandicoot trilogy in 1 week from now on. Thanks.
Yes.
Hey guys, huge fan of the podcast." Says Eric, "I was wondering what some
You
of
didn't
your
go blah, 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 blah.
because I put these emails in here and took out all the blah blahs."
Oh, okay.
Because I'm okay. I just don't feel comfortable going like, I love you guys.
No,
because I'm
that's
saying it
fair.
about myself.
That's
I can't
fair.
say that about myself.
I put out a tweet recently where I legitimately started listening to a podcast and they start every episode reading their positive iTunes reviews, and I did not like that
Oh,
at
yeah,
all.
I've been meaning to ask you what podcast that was.
I'll tell you off air.
Yeah.
It's the Little Dum Dum Club.
Oh, fuck. That's my one. Doesn't sound like us at all. It's the opposite.
Eric says, "I was wondering what some of your favorite games that no one seems to remember." What are some of your favorite games that no one seems to remember? First time I ever used analog sticks, my controller was playing Ape Escape 1 on PS1 in 1999. That's such an interesting way. The first time I ever used analog sticks, my controller was playing Ape Escape.
My controller became sentient, and I sat there and watched it play itself.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was what... that was the analog stick one.
Yes. Yeah.
It's always been one of my favorites, even though no one remembers it. What are your
remember it.
favorite? Yeah, you're wrong, Eric.
Everyone remembers that game.
Yeah.
I feel like of a certain age you would, but I don't know if you were younger. Whether or
Well,
not
that's
Ape
just how
Escape.
memory works.
That's
No, 'cause
everything.
I know what the fucking World War One was.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there. It
was a great
Thank God. What are your favorite games that no one seems to remember? $10 on Tommy saying some obscure Mario game no one's ever heard of.
Unnecessary for him to write that. Even more unnecessary for you to read it out.
Yeah, you didn't
I-
filter that out.
I was questioning whether or not to, but I ended up going for it because he's thrown it in there and I want to represent the people.
Yeah,
Okay.
fair enough. Blah, blah, blah. Tommy sucks. I actually wrote a bit of a list of obscure stuff that
Here
I
we go.
remember that
Nice.
that people may not be too familiar with. But I mean, the Nintendo 64 was the console where I ended up getting most things that were on there.
Right.
And it, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It felt like a lot of stuff came out on there, especially like 3D platformers. So like, talked a lot in the past about the games of Rareware, like Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then, they're less well-known games like Jet Force Gemini, which was like a third-person space shooter kind of game where you could play as a boy or a girl and then their dog eventually, and they all kind of handle
a slippery
slightly differently.
First
really
it's
is.
boys and girls, then it's dogs.
Yeah, there's a plebiscite in level 4, and then all of a sudden you're playing as a fucking dog.
I remember that one.
Yeah.
Insects, big alien insects
yes.
were your enemies, and it had great music.
Yeah, never got the same level as hype as their other games, but I had a lot of fun with that. Blast Core was another one that they made.
That was sick.
I would love them to re-release. Oh well, I think they've re-released all this stuff.
They
on
were in the
Xbox,
Rare
haven't they?
collection
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, right.
Another game called Space Station Silicon Valley.
Oh, yeah, you've told me about
I
that.
think I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
It's levels where you're like so you're in a space station that's like an artificial kind of biodome thing, and there's robot recreations of animals, and you're playing like a little computer chip, and you possess the different animals and
That's
use
right.
that to solve puzzles. It's kind of a very, very primitive version of Mario being able to capture stuff with his hat,
yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
There's a weird lineage too that goes. The people who made Lemmings made that, and then made GTA 3.
Yes,
There's like a
yes.
strange through line there. That's,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah. Beetle Adventure Racing was something we talked about the other week, which I
Ooh.
really enjoyed on the 64. Then, like, just obscure platformers and stuff. Like, there was one called Chameleon Twist.
Yeah, all those ones like fucking Glover.
Yep,
And
yeah.
those that you play as Danny Glover.
Nice.
But no, you're a Glover and you roll a ball around or something. But there
Yeah.
were a
Oh,
fuckload
that's
of
familiar.
Tonic Trouble.
Tonic Trouble, yeah.
Pandemonium was one that I played. It was
Yep.
a PS1.
40 Winks.
Yeah.
Rascal.
Oh.
But this era of...
Small Soldiers was based on the movie.
Ah, yeah. Nice.
But yeah, just this real era of like come up with a character and put him in a 3D platformer. Mischief Makers was a 2D platformer that was on there that I really enjoyed. And then I've talked about it so much on the show, but Goof Troop on the Super Nintendo is such a favorite of mine. The first console I ever got was an NES that my mum got a copy of Tom and Jerry with it because my name is Tom. And then, do you remember this? Like old NES cartridges, ones that weren't licensed by Nintendo, they would be like cartridge that had like an open bit on the end where you would have to plug an official Nintendo cartridge into to get them to work.
Oh, I don't think I ever saw that.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
And you
Yeah.
could still just get them in Target even though they're essentially bootlegs.
Huh.
Yeah,
But they
wow.
basically, if Nintendo, because Nintendo had to send out the cartridges and like officially license everything themselves. So yeah, these games would come out where it would basically piggyback on what is in an officially licensed cartridge.
Right.
And then use it to power this game that was inside. So
Wow.
we had like a game that was one of them that was like where you played like a polar bear and you had to like defend your little ice cave.
Yeah,
thingy.
right.
Yeah.
There was a thing I learned about the other day that was for the Nintendo 64 that was like a disk drive. It was like a bootleg thing that would plug in at the bottom and it would just read burnt CDs.
Oh, wow.
And so you would plug in one of certain games into the top that had whatever code it needed to trick it into running, and then you'd run Nintendo 64 games off of the CD
Wow.
that was in this big
right.
fucking thing down the bottom.
Wow.
And apparently at the time it was like a big deal because it's like, oh, well, fuck.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I never heard of that.
no, I didn't-
Nintendo's consoles have been easy to hack ever since.
Well, and then my cousin had a Super Nintendo thing where you put floppy disks in it and it would run
Right.
whatever.
Wow.
Played a bunch of fucking Bubsy.
Game
with that.
Genie. You remember
Yeah.
the Game Genie for the NES?
You had to rub the NES 3 times and then he'd pop out and come all over you.
That's exactly what it was.
Those were like cheat things, weren't they?
Yeah.
You could access cheat codes or whatever.
Yeah, but I also think maybe you could get games through them as well.
There was a lot of wild shit with with the cartridge systems, the weird fucking stuff you had to do to make piracy happen on those, and
Yeah.
people fucking did it.
Yeah.
And you were playing Donkey Kong Country 2 off of floppy disks.
What about games for you, Knox?
Well, I guess they're obscure. Like, I used to really love
It's
a
kind of
bunch
hard to classify exactly what is obscure now because everything
Yeah.
kind of,
Yeah.
if it's good enough, has a bit of a renaissance where
Yeah.
whatever Kotaku will do an article like, oh, remember this? Or it gets re-released on a store. Like people
Totally.
People
There's
chomp
a
at the
bunch
bit
of
for it.
old Sega ones that seem like they're dead forever.
Ah, yeah.
Like Panzer Dragoon and Jet Set Radio were two that I
Yeah.
fucking loved at the time, and they haven't had a whisper of doing anything with them in 15 years plus. So, but Shenmue fucking happened, so
Yeah.
anything could happen.
Yeah.
Well, that's what kills me about Goof Troop. I love it, but it's because it's licensed. And like, there's heaps of great licensed Disney stuff on the Mega Drive as well that is just never. That I guess, yeah, it's just not possible for them to reboot it, or they. I mean, they rebooted Castle of Illusion, which is like a Master System Mickey game. They
Yeah.
remade that, so it kind of does happen, but I think it's rare that they give enough of a fuck to
Yeah.
bother.
There's a bunch of stuff from that like sort of late 90s Sega that like weird shit like Samba de Amigo and Space
Yes.
Channel
Right.
5 and all these
Yeah.
fucking strange like
I never
Rez,
played-
I guess, has come back.
I never played any of that stuff.
My cousin had my cousin, he was fucking, well, this is two different cousins actually, so I got our family gatherings, we all have like
There's three of you.
big electronic visors and we walk around and greet each other by like typing computers that are attached to our chests.
Hell yeah.
But
Like Daft Punk.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm friends with these two. My cousins are French, but there was that sort of stuff. I guess happens with indie things now. But like, there's a bunch of shit that didn't come over here too. Like Sega Gaga is a
Oh,
game where
yes.
you run Sega,
Yeah.
and that fucking talking fish one, whatever he was called.
Yeah. Billy the Big
Seaman.
Mouth Bass.
That's the one. He had a hell of a set of pipes on him.
Man, I never played Jet Set Radio, and all you hear about it is just really, really great stuff. And I would love to see that get a redo.
Someone recently made a fake album for the third one.
Yeah.
Right.
That was fucking awesome. So Google that somehow because I don't know. I don't remember. What about you, Ben? Obscure.
There's a series of games from a company I've forgotten.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. No, they were city building games, and they weren't city building games on the scale of a Sim City.
Right.
They were much more. They were smaller. They were more like, I guess, villages. They were Caesar were
Yeah.
the first series, and then they did one which is like kind of my favorite game, but I don't say it is my favorite because no one else knows it.
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh was in there. Zeus is my favorite.
Okay, Zeus.
It was the first game I ever bought, I think, myself from a swap meet.
Right.
Nice.
And yeah, it's just this great ancient Greek setting, city building game where it's just perfectly balanced. It can be really, really difficult, but
Were they the ones where you had sort of like a book and you would go left and like it was like you were seeing a grid, like a block, and you would move that block like it was on top of a table? Does that make sense?
Sort of. I don't. Maybe the older ones were like that. Zeus was
Right.
much more just like isometric SimCity view.
Okay.
Bit closer in than an actual city, and it was all about the rhythms of like. You got to get some food, so you place a market, then you build some farms, then the guy from the market can go in this amount of distance to the houses you build. The houses need water, so it's all this
Those
like
fucking suburban people never go with outside of a certain distance of where they're from.
their little bubble.
You got to get out there and live in the world.
But it was this great balance of gameplay mechanics and ancient Greek like mythology and stories and stuff as well. And I don't think I've ever seen anyone else play it.
Right. Just reminded me of something that I probably should have brought up in the Bandcamp MS-DOS episode we did, but a fucking computer swap meet. Oh, how good.
Yeah.
Going down. I think that was where I got the Simpsons Doom patch. It's like some dodgy guy selling it on a floppy disk with this like shit label that he'd printed himself with like a bad stretched JPEG of Mo holding a shotgun. Like going in and because you'd always have the desks of people who were just selling like actual boxed Diablo.
Yes.
You're like, get out of here, idiot. You go right up the back and it's like, just, I don't know who they've conned or what's going on.
What are you doing here, cop?
Yeah.
Narc.
I remember, actually, like this speaks to how forgotten this game is now. This was the only place I could buy it.
Right.
It wasn't in stores, or if it was, there was one copy that was sold out. I had to find this one guy who had a stall at this swap meet every month. And
His name was Zeus.
Yeah.
Please buy my game.
Is that is that the end of that question?
Unless you've all got more.
No.
No?
No,
Have you been able to find it since? You haven't been able to play it since? Like found online or anything?
I've found it online.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I found it online for Windows only, and I did this weird thing where I got it onto my Mac and working in some weird backdoor action. But
hell yeah.
Speaking of the Greeks.
Well, let's take the really natural break in between questions there that I just slotted into very seamlessly to talk about our sponsor for this week. The episode...
The Greek anal sex is sponsoring us.
Greek anal sex.
Only that type.
Yeah.
They were pretty generous with it, you have to admit. They really pretty quickly gave the rights up to the rest of the world.
Yeah, it's open source now.
Yeah. And then they kept experimenting. There was like thunderbolts and animals involved. It was
Yep.
great. It was good shit.
It's the Wild West, man. Wild South.
Yes. Well, the wild Greek. The wild Greece.
What?
The wild
I meant
Central
your
Europe.
butthole is south. Okay, never mind,
Yeah,
If any of our listeners work for Big Anal and can get them on board as a sponsor one week, please let us know.
This week is not sponsored by Big Anal. This episode is sponsored by Blog Tyrant. You can go to blogtyrant.com/filth and get an individual brainstorming session from Blog Tyrant to help you start a blog or a career online. It's all about starting a website, but not just starting one. Any company can give you a website and a bunch
I could
of...
fucking do that for you.
Biganal.com.
Yeah, right.
But Blog Tyrant is about teaching you how to start one and how to make it successful.
Right.
So with more and more people looking to the internet to pursue a hobby, support an existing career, or start a little something on the side,
Hell yeah.
Blog Tyrant is an invaluable resource with step-by-step guides on creating websites and making sure you get plenty of visitors. Blog Tyrant has been helping people build successful blogs and websites for almost 10 years. Ooh. That's a decade
Almost.
in Greek. Now, we do a lot of stuff online.
That is where the majority of, I would say it's where our better work is.
Yes, agreed.
It's weird because we record this in the real world, offline.
Yeah.
Everything else to do with it online.
Yeah, and the real world stuff is a real chore.
Yeah.
The second we turn that shit into ones and zeros, that's when the money starts coming in.
Yeah.
That's
this
right.
now, us in this room, looking at each other, the worst bit by far.
The worst bit of my week.
Just a nightmare.
Yeah.
As soon as this turns off, though, that's when the good shit happens.
That's right. I actually started a blog when I was like 20
Here we go.
that literally turned into my career. I was at uni.
Episode 1 is the most disappointing film that I have seen.
And then I do like bad comedy sketches on the side. Yeah, I started a blog when I was in uni, and I didn't know shit about shit, and it took me a few years to turn that into an actual job. And now I'm a digital producer as my job. Like that's
a dig pro, they call them.
Yeah, a digipro.
Digital prod.
Big anal. But yeah, I wish I had someone to be like, oh, if you have this in your headline, people will actually find it through Google.
It's crazy with this stuff how there are just literal, actual, no, definitely do this things that are simple, but you need to know them.
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
know
not
any
going
of
to
them.
fucking tell you them.
No.
I'm keeping them secret for my shit.
Yeah.
For my website. I've got a successful website. Have I ever told you about that?
No.
Facebook.com.
That's you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're the guy who started Facebook.
I reckon you
Wow.
should change it to the Facebook.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell you what's cooler than that?
What?
You know what's cooler than a joke about the social network?
What?
A million jokes about the social network.
Well, this ad was worth $1 billion. Yeah, so if you are thinking of starting a blog but you want it to actually get readers, then go to blogtyrant.com. And if you go to blogtyrant.com/filth, you get a free email feedback session from the person who runs Blog Tyrant on how to make a good blog. So thank you, Blog Tyrant, for sponsoring this episode.
Yeah.
And what was where do you go?
blogtyrant.com/filth.
Hell yeah. That's how you get noticed on the internet. Or you email us. Like Hank Pym has done, which is definitely his real name.
Yeah.
Hank Hill?
So this is sort of a complicated email, but I'm going to read the entire thing.
Okay.
How about full creative control in a game? Is his opening salvo.
All right.
I
Maybe
like
not the
these
best-
emails to us where people think that they're like pitching an ad, like they're in Mad Men. Like,
Yeah.
just ask us a
Yeah.
question. You don't need to fucking set the
Picture
scene.
a world in which you get the full creative control of a game.
Now-
that world can
Yeah.
become a reality.
You wake
Nobody's
up.
buying a game. They're buying a lifestyle.
You wake up, you check your email. A listener of your podcast has sent you an email. That email is happening right now. Gentlemen, hello.
The ability to create and do anything. My idea when I was younger came from wanting to download mods for PC games, but not having a powerful enough PC to run any of those games. I was stuck on a console, the original Xbox, where for the most part you could not freely change a game as you wanted, like creating new maps. Then a game called Pariah came out on the Xbox. Speaking of obscure games, this was like the one that came along and it was like, oh, Halo's over, Halo's dead, Pariah's going to beat it.
I do have a vague memory of this.
It definitely happened. It wasn't the best game. It felt like a rip-off of an Unreal game that was already out on the system. However, you could freely create maps for multiplayer from the hills, valleys, water to the buildings and vehicle placement, blah, blah, blah. Map creator mode, like the Forge mode in Halo 3. Then I guess there's Super Mario Maker. Basically, his question, though, ends up being, is there something that you would be interested in doing in all types of games? Do you think this should be a feature in more games? The Far Cry 5 thing, which just came out, the arcade thing, and a few games have this and have toyed with it, but it's never been done super well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm aware that we like you said, never been done super well. I just have no interest in it. Like I don't want to make my own stuff in games. I want a good game designer to make a thing that they think I'm really going to like, and then I play that. You know, like I'm not going, like no one's going, oh, you know what, when I go to the movies, I wish it just ended 10 minutes earlier and then we could all get up and act out a little play where we come up with our own end of the movie.
But you do that. That's what we all do. Like, that's what we're all...
Excuse me?
This is a hell of a take.
Am I being given carte blanche to rush the stage at the end of Chimcom?
But we're all like, I hate fucking... But creative people and whatever.
Yeah.
So why is it that in games that urge to, like, make something interesting isn't there as
Well,
much?
I like that in some games. I never like level creation or map building or that any of that stuff. But in Fallout 4, I love building structures and building the gardens and adding to all the existing houses. I like that stuff.
Yeah.
I like city building games, but there's some weird distinction between that and map builders.
Like a map editor.
That I have
well,
no interest
for me,
in.
the reason I don't like it is because I'm not a game designer. In much the same
Sure.
way I don't like
Right.
an audience member coming up to me after a gig and saying, yeah, here's a joke that you should have made instead. It's
Yeah.
like,
True.
yeah, well, you don't know. Listen, Adam, you don't know what you're fucking talking about.
Weird name you pick. But I think there's maybe something to be said for how you don't get to see the actual results of your level either. That was something that it's something like Mario Maker. If you could put that level up and straight away watch another person run through it,
Oh, yeah.
That's
and
a-
watch them
yeah,
fuck it up
sure.
and watch them, because that's something that I think we all fucking like about comedy you hear laugh straight away.
Yeah. I mean,
That little Freudian slip there. I didn't say you hear laughter or you hear laughs. I said you hear laugh. I just had to point out that my brain hates what I do.
I think for me, like when I got Super Mario Maker, I really enjoyed it for like a day or two, but it just the amount of time it was taking me to make a level, I was like, well, I would rather play in this amount of time it's taken me. I would rather just play a game, or if I'm going to be creative, I would rather just work on my own comedy or do a drawing or like, to me it's like I think part of it why it doesn't scratch any kind of creative itch for me is because it's I don't know, I just don't, to me it doesn't feel creative in the same way that actual
But do you think
creation does.
Do you think that would change it for you though if it were, because in Mario Maker and everything like that, Little Big Planet and whatever that I've ever done this with, you just throw it out into the ether and it's gone, and you've made that thing like there's no feedback, there's no watching people do it.
The issue as well is you can't design a game level for yourself to play and enjoy. It's not possible. The things about games that we enjoy are surprising and inventive and like teach us things. You can't build your own level and just play it yourself and get any level of enjoyment out of it.
No, you're building it for somebody else.
But I think for me, like watching someone else play the level, it wouldn't give me enjoyment because it would just feel like I've just designed this level. I didn't design this game that is really good. It's, you know what I mean? It's the mechanics. It's not the specific level of something that I think in what I think is. Whereas, you know, a comedy show, it's like I didn't invent comedy, but I wrote that whole wrote this whole thing.
You didn't invent comedy?
Well, I mean, it's going to the courts next week, and I'm really hoping for a win. I'm hoping I get custody of comedy in this battle. But yeah, I don't know. I just it's something about like. People come to see a show of mine and it's like I've the whole thing is me. Whereas like watching someone love a level I made, it's like, well, they actually love Mario. They like I happen to have made a good level in it, but it's not. I can't take any satisfaction in this person loving this level.
I wonder then, Knox, because Knox and I are in a group that creates things that are like very narrative based, and they're like there's definite comparisons between games and sketch comedy. Yeah, you're setting up these.
They both suck and nerds do them.
And not enough people consume them. No, but it's about getting into a group and coming up with those ideas and then putting those ideas in front of people and seeing if they work.
Yeah.
What I think would be maybe more attractive to me in a game level design sense is if I was guaranteed a bunch of people would definitely play it. If I could make a level, put it out there, and like 50 people played it the next day and enjoyed it, maybe that'd be what would get me into it.
Yeah, there's something about like, just the structure of it is too fucking... well, if I was going to do this, then I would have done it fucking years ago with Half-Life or whatever.
Sure.
And put it on whatever dumb website. Because I think that's the thing that nobody's got properly done yet is making that structure of... but I don't know, how do you do that? Because then you're forcing people to play these shit levels that some idiots made. Like, I don't know how you do it, but that's why I'm not a game designer.
Maybe we are literally just talking about, if we wanted to make games, we'd be game designers and it'd be rewarding.
Yeah.
I mean, it's for me, and again, it's not to put too fine a point on it, but for me, like, and for all of us, but I mean, this is the reason I don't enjoy it. Creativity it's work. So if I'm playing a game, I want to just... I'm using that to switch off. I don't want to sit and be artistic and creative and go, okay, and refine stuff, because that's what I spend like the rest of my day doing. I'm into it for a completely different release.
Yeah, that's probably exactly the same for us. Whereas someone who is doing it, maybe that is their creative outlet.
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's the thing. Whenever I've come close to doing this, it's to try and make little story things in like old RPGs and stuff. I remember Neverwinter Nights had a fucking thing where you could go through, but it was at some point just a lot of work. And that's not why I'm playing video games.
But like I said, in that first week of Mario Maker, I did really, really enjoy being given that, especially because it's a series of games that I've loved for as long pretty much as they've been around.
Yep.
Being given the keys to that was really cool, and then once that wore off, I was just like, this just takes too long. I'm like, I'd rather playing through other people's levels was really fun, but sitting there and doing it myself.
Well, I'm glad there are people out there who do it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right. So our next email comes in from Cameron. Not Cameroon.
No, not Cameron.
Not the country. Just a man named Cameron.
Okay.
I've listened back through every episode of the podcast. Love them, by the way. That's nice, Cameron. Thank you. And noticed that you never addressed the most important question in gaming. Is it spelled video games or video games? Is there a space in the middle?
Yeah.
No.
Even your Patreon page can't provide an answer as it uses both spellings within the first two sentences.
All right, here we go. Now we're getting to the real point of this thing.
Yeah.
Having a fucking crack, are you, mate?
Yeah.
Although the spelling with the space is more common, it's the choice of AP style.
Yeah, Associated Press.
Right. There are still some publications that use the single word video games, like Paste Magazine. The argument for no space is typically that the artistic medium should be one like film, music, etc. What's your preference? Does the distinction matter? Maybe add a hyphen in there. Should there even be called video games? So this is a part of the question I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
Can you really label the incredibly wide variety of experiences the industry produces under just one title of games? A word that comes with a connotation of meaningless fun and a whole host of cultural baggage about who plays them. Mm-hmm. Some people have suggested that game is too limiting to describe everything the medium produces, or that it implies a lack of artistic vision and we should instead use something like interactive experiences. While it might be pointless discussion to have nearly 50 years after the name has been established, I do think names are important and it inspires interesting discussions and jokes on video game Twitter every once in a while. I'm a video games with no space person myself. What are your thoughts? That second half of that I think is really fucking interesting.
Yeah.
Just quickly, speaking of Paste Magazine,
Yes.
did you guys see NME is got? I mean,
Feel this magazine. It's like it's got paste all through it.
I swear it's paste.
NME went out of business?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. No.
Yes. Today. Like that was announced today.
3 weeks ago.
The only thing I know about NME magazine that I've seen on there for the last like 20 years is sometimes one of the Gallagher brothers.
I was going to say, yes, it has to be Oasis related for you.
Only thing I associate with, but no, there's other stuff, but they seem to always be doing it.
And Enemy's the Rolling Stone of England. Yeah.
That's pretty huge. Like
Yeah.
a big tastemaker for so long to be closing out. So it just made me think of that. Like
Yeah.
It is such a big cultural thing for something that huge to be going, all right, yep, we're out.
Yeah.
We're done.
Yeah.
Well,
we
and
fucked.
the cultural thing of this video games discussion, I think, is really interesting because it hasn't been changed since the start.
Yeah.
And that is like a 70s thing of like video game. Like,
Yes.
look at it. It'd like be, if we still call movies the talkies.
Yeah, moving pictures. Like
Yeah.
if we still said, well, maybe we should just abbreviate video games to vidya. Oh, I feel sick.
Yeah.
No, that's awful.
I guess you're right. I mean, they're talking about video games. It still is in terms of relatively a newer industry that still is.
At this point, though, compared to movies,
Yeah.
like it's about half the time. Like it's
We're
not,
in the 40s for films now.
I guess it's
Citizen
also
Kane is out.
yeah.
And it is what game is what's the Citizen Kane of video games?
No Man's Sky.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, but it seems like a sort of a thing that would just never have. Like these days, I can't really imagine there being a thing online where it's like, guess what, everyone? They're not called video games anymore. They're called so sorry, JB Hi-Fi.
Yeah.
Sorry, stores that have a video game section. You get it. Just would
It
not.
definitely won't be interactive experiences because
No.
it will never go longer.
Exactly. It's got to be one word,
Yeah.
and it's got to be a word that's not awful like vidya.
Crams.
It's called crams now, everyone.
Yeah.
I love playing my crams. Get out there.
I think it's an
not that one.
interesting, philosophical discussion. I don't know that it matters though in the end, right? Like movies are called movies because they were called moving pictures, and now it doesn't matter.
It's just short.
It's just
and-
short.
The baggage went away rather than because they were silly little put your 10 cents in at the fun fair, less than 10 cents, but put your penny in the penny arcade.
Yeah, penny is the smallest denomination of currency in the history of the world.
Not true. There's what's a halfpenny?
It's
Half a penny. What's sixpence? That's six
that's six
pennies. That's 6 times more. But there was like a crown. A crown was less, I
Right.
think, and like a half crown and a halfpenny was a half a penny.
Yeah,
so
wow.
fucking shut up.
I tend to spell it without a space because
Yeah.
to me it is like
Same.
It's the term for the medium. It's
Yeah.
not
Right.
the word video and the word game.
Yeah, it's not a game that's moving on a screen. It's yeah.
Yeah.
I have the space, but I've just never really thought about it and just do it.
Videogame.
Video gleams. I put the space up just before the S. Video game.
But what is something that it could be changed to that's an actual word or an actual term or an actual combination of words?
What's that term they use for the study of it? It's like ludography or something. Like LUDO, ludonarrative. Yeah. Ludos or something.
Ludos.
No, that's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's
Ludes.
never going to happen.
Nah.
But I like it, even though it is so far removed. Like, it does conjure up video games, like this real 80s idea of what they were. I like that. I like that we still reference that anytime we talk about a Telltale game or a walking simulator that is so far removed from that. I like that we still bring it back to this thing of it's like, we're sitting in front of a screen, controlling a thing.
It's reductive and it's simplistic, but I think it's charming because of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Little like you, plugger. I live in Tuvalu, says Ross, a place far away from everything and with internet, if you can believe it, much worse than Australia.
Impossible.
Quick little fact about Tuvalu that he doesn't point out in this. I hope I'm saying that right.
This is about fucking coins again. I'm going to kill you.
Tuvalu. Tuvalu. No, it's
Tuvalu.
Tuvalu.
Two in the pink.
One in the loo. Which does still work. When you go to websites that are .tv,
yes.
It's not television, it's Tuvalu.
Really?
A big part of their economy, maybe not a big part, but a lot of websites sign up as though they're from them.
Yeah.
Right.
If you can believe it, though, their internet is much worse than Australia. I've been re-listening to all your old episodes because I can only get good enough internet to download podcasts once or twice a week.
It's the only time they come out.
I wish I was
no need to throw your country's internet under the bus.
I wish I was feeling flush enough to have bought a Switch before moving here. It would have given me much more to do during my downtime. Anyway, a question if you needed. Games like to say they have real choices that change the outcome of the game. But in reality, very few actually do. So my question is this: have there ever been any instances where the choices did affect the way you felt about the game? What are the choices you've made in games that you have regretted? That's from Ross.
Well, that's sort of a couple of different questions there, I feel like, because the way that was phrased in the middle was, are there any choices that you've made in games that have changed the way you've felt about games?
Yeah.
Which
right.
Absolutely, almost every game with choices presented to the player, I've felt at the time, and in the aftermath of the decision, like it meant something.
But that can be a trick, and it isn't technically actually a change.
It's almost exclusively a trick, right?
So I played a bit more of, I hadn't played it for a couple of months, but Persona 5 the other night. And so you constantly, anything where you're in conversations and you're having to choose, it's so dumb because I really stress about what I'm going to pick in that moment. And then, that it doesn't mean anything. You could just go, I'll always pick the top thing. But in my head, I go, because I'm being given the choice, I should, and this is like an avatar of me in this game, I should answer it how I would actually answer it in the real world. It's such a dumb thing to get caught up in. Yeah,
I tend to treat those games and those choices as like a way to become immersed in the character. So it's not necessarily what I would choose, but I've gone, I'm this character in this game. Like Mass Effect is a really good one where you kind of decide who you're going to be, how you're going to play, and then making those choices within the bounds of that character that you've chosen help immerse you further in the game. That's how I tend to treat them.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, sure, maybe after the fact it's not a real choice or the choice doesn't have meaning within the game, but in the moment it helped me get more immersed.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why it's done. The two things that stick out for me are in Resident Evil 4, early on there's a bit where there's a dog caught in a trap and you let him out, and then in the first boss he kind of comes out of nowhere and helps you, and in the moment I was like, oh, that's really cool. I could have not done that and I wouldn't have had this little bit of help.
Right.
He kind of does nothing.
Right.
And the other one is the end of Cave Story, where as this base is blowing up, you are given the option of making an escape with this scientist who's he's gotten on his little ship and he's flying away. So you can go with him, and then it basically cuts to a shot of you just on this ship with him, and it just sits there in the sky of you flying around and nothing happens.
Right.
It just pauses there, and it basically leaves you to work out, oh, I wasn't meant to do that. I was meant to go back and save this person.
Right.
And you have to reset the game and go back to your last save and do it from there.
Mm-hmm.
Just hold on for 2 seconds there. Can you wiggle your mic around a bit? Yeah, it's really the top of it is making a noise. That's better. I think. Wiggle it now. Yeah, that's gone. That solved it. All right. Yeah, I often find that because I remember something recently that I definitely went, oh no, fuck, I feel bad about doing that, and it's gone out of my head now.
Yeah.
Because I think ultimately I do always think of them, like you were saying, it's like it doesn't actually matter.
Right.
Well, like I said, I could only think of two that I remember going, and sure, one of them was quite recent, but I did think that was a cool way of, like, yeah, you get given this choice, it doesn't fuck the game up, but it is a cool thing of like, you have to reset now and actually go back and do the right thing.
Right.
And yeah,
Do the right thing. That had a lot of
got to always do the right thing.
crazy shit in it, that film.
Yeah. Movie.
So,
Moving picture.
Ludonarrative experience.
But yeah, I definitely would like to see more stuff in games where, yeah, you get given this thing that you can just walk past and ignore, but if you don't, you do kind of get helped in some way, and it does actually affect what you're doing rather than just these. It feels like it's always like in terms of what you say to people where you know that in the grand scheme of things, it's not really going to change it anyway.
Right.
So given that it's all inconsequential, I would prefer it to be, oh, this is just a cool little thing is going to happen that you're going to remember, and you're going to feel good like, oh, I did that, and now this happens.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Just
change
a
the
little
game
bit
at
of
all, but it
cause and
just
effect.
sticks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
rather than just like answering a question in one of three ways that are all kind of the same. And
Right.
That was a shitty thing about Fallout 4. That every different option you had was basically yes but angry, yes but sad, yes but something.
Yeah.
Just have if you want to make a character, have him automatically do it then.
Yeah, sure.
It's that would be my preference at least.
It probably would be remiss of us to not talk about Telltale a bit more in depth, because that is the big one.
Yeah.
All you're doing is making choices in that game.
Sort of.
In those
and
games.
They don't really... they're very much the one where it's, oh, they tricked me.
Yes, because on the surface, it's like, great, a choose your own adventure that I'm playing through. I'm a little bit more immersed than I would be otherwise. It's a story. I'm making decisions about where the story's going to go. This is revolutionary. And like the one that really got me was the Game of Thrones game.
Right, I haven't played that.
It's really good because it's a well-written story that plays out pretty much the same no matter how you play it.
It was the same with the first series of The Walking Dead.
Right.
Where there was one choice in particular, somewhere around the middle, that really affected stuff and really seemed like I had caused it to happen.
Right.
You can do the exact opposite decisions and the same thing happens.
Yeah, right.
Which, I think you were saying this basically before of make the trick, write it, have the preference be for the writing, and then have the trick affect that rather than make it two shitty paths that are less well written but have an actual choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
guess.
I'm fine with it just being a little superfluous bells and whistles thing that's like, it triggers a thing that's like impressive but meaningless.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's why I've never been able to really get too enthused about Telltale stuff because it does seem like what's going to happen is going to happen, and I would rather just watch something if I'm going to sit there touching a screen every minute.
Yeah.
I'd rather just actually disconnect and just sit and relax and watch something.
I think they tend to successfully trick me. Like The Wolf Among Us is the best Fable story that's been written, and I felt like I was involved, and I wasn't really. I was just watching a visual graphic novel play out in front of me.
Yeah,
but it got me. And the same with Game of Thrones. It was only the second time I played through that I was like, oh, fuck. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess we just have a bit of a higher IQ than you, and it's easier, it's harder to fool us. So.
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe I'm just more of a romantic, more of a dreamer,
I really want to remember someone died in a game that I played, and I'd caused it to happen. I was like, oh, I feel bad about that.
Mass Effect does that a bit?
I very quickly afterwards went, oh, but who fucking actually cares?
Right.
What's come out this year? Or last year. Again, who cares?
It honestly, most of the time that happens in a game, it's a little cheap trick, and then you move on and you don't.
Totally.
Doki Doki?
Huh?
Doki Doki Literature Club.
Oh.
Maybe.
You did
it could
get
be.
annoyed at that.
Could be.
Because it really does make you think.
All right, he's stuck. Stuck in a loop.
Because it really does lead you to think that it
was your choice.
It's really
that game was all about fake choice too.
Yeah, exactly. But it really sets it up like you chose this, and now this stuff is happening, and this is very unique.
Yeah, could have been that one.
Yeah.
I guess we'll never know. My memory is terrible, and it's a spotty nightmare.
It's probably that one, though. We talked about it on the show.
Speaking of nightmares, is it time to put this episode to bed and go and have a little bit of a sleep when I will inevitably have nightmares?
Yeah, or you committed to doing a gig and time is running out for you to get an Uber to that gig, and so you need us to wrap up right now.
I would have been able to do it, but I said no to the gig to do
Did you
this.
really?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
told me to.
No, did we?
Yeah. And it is just more about the time that the episode would normally end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let's
That's
wrap
all
it
right.
up then.
It's not. I've made sacrifices to be here today, and I don't feel as though they've been respected. To
I
be
respected them.
frank. Well, that doesn't mean anything to me.
If you died, I would move on with the game.
All right, guys. Yeah, thank you for listening. Come out and see us at the Comedy Festival this month. We'll be back next week. We'll have our thoughts on Far Cry 5 and that sexy map editor.
Oh, yes.
Seems like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes.
Yes, filthycasuals.com.au for links to our socials and all of our various things that you could find, the Patreon, the Bandcamp premium episodes.
Feel free to edit this out if I'm wrong. Ready Player One is coming out soon after this episode.
Yeah, today. It came out today.
Yes.
I'm definitely going to see it and definitely going to talk about it on this show.
I might not come and see it.
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
going to go and I'm going to force you to come with us.
Yeah.
For the sake of content.
The amount of fucking sacrifices I made. All right.
Well, you shouldn't have bailed out of that gig to come and see the movie with us. All right, guys, thanks for listening. And as we say here at the end of every episode of Filthy Casuals...
I hope you've enjoyed this Ludo audio interactive experience. When will they change the word podcast?
Oh.
This podcast is part of the Planet Broadcasting Network.
Visit planetbroadcasting.com for more podcasts from our great mates. It's not optional. You have to do it. We used to go easy on it, but now you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.